Now, I really didn't want to make a follow-up video on this, but everyone out there is actually accusing Epic Games, which I'm usually down for, okay? If you guys watch my videos, I'm all about hating on Epic Games, who has not been doing some things very well with their game as of late, but this instance is very different. I've seen plenty of videos out there surpassing millions of views blaming Epic Games for not paying out prize pools for the Australian Open. I will link our first video down below for all of you guys where I try and explain this story, but let's look at the facts throughout this episode. I'm going to piece through every single piece of evidence, which there's not too much out there, and trying to defend Epic Games as to why they may not be responsible for paying out these prizes, which have already been majority paid out. If you guys remember, for this Open, it was actually a $500,000 event. Reports as of right now say upwards of almost $200,000 have not been paid out, which does mean a majority of the prizes have been paid out so far, which is good for the future. I think these players will eventually get paid, whether it's by Epic Games or Australian Open. I guess it doesn't matter for the players out there, but let's look at the facts out there currently and see exactly why people are actually trying to blame Epic Games for this. And the one piece of evidence I've really found so far against Epic Games is of course going to be the original post from the Australian Open, which I will say, like I said before, many of the players have been paid, so that's good news. And some of those players, when they were paid from this event so far, did cite they were actually paid by Epic Games, which lines up with the Australian Open post, which does say Epic Games will be distributing these payments / the prize pools, which does make sense. But let's also clarify there's a big difference between distributing prize pools and paying the prize pools, or paying for these prizes, okay? When it comes down to most of their esports events out there, I would say a far majority of them, it is the organizer and their duty and their sole responsibility to pay out these prize pools. We look at the Wikipedia and we already knew about this. This was an event sponsored and actually organized by the Australian Open. Over 1.5 million followers on Twitter. They are a very verified user and very trustworthy user out there. They were the organizer of the event, and so in most cases, I would say 90% and above cases out there, they should be the sole responsible owner of actually paying for these prize pools, not Epic Games. So although that original post does say Epic Games will distribute the prize pools, that does not mean they are the ones who are actually paying the amount of money there. And so maybe Australian Open has not actually given Epic Games the amount of money for these players, but let's move on from that as well. On top of that, another thing I guess you could say slightly against Epic Games, but definitely not a contractual agreement for them to pay things. People are now calling out, Denver actually, he did piece together a very good video as well. He actually showed the in-game load screen, which promoted the Australian Open. And on top of that, a tweet from the Fortnite account as well, also promoting the event. And to this I say, this is in no terms. Of course, a developer out there like Epic is going to want to promote a solid event out there. They thought the Australian Open was a very trustworthy organizer as well. They have such a great following. So Epic Games, of course, is going to assume this event's going to be legit, but in no way does them promoting the event on their loading screen or their Twitter contractually make Epic Games the responsible person to pay these prize pools. And I think that needs to be clarified. Like I said before, it is still the organizer's responsibility. They put together the event, they acquire the sponsors, which means they acquire the money for this. And so I still think that this should lie. Now, I could be wrong. Obviously, Denver could be right about this. Until Epic comes forward about this and clarifies the situation, this still should be the responsibility of Australian Open. Just because Epic promotes an event they trusted does not mean they are responsible for paying out those players. It should still be the Australian Open. And then to further add on to this, some players out there also received an email from an Epic employee named Alex as well, clarifying this event was not sponsored by Epic Games. It was a third-party event, which further backs the actual claim that Australian Open should be responsible for that. And then very last, as I show you guys a list of players out there that have reported not being paid so far, you look at a lot of these players have actually said they filled out their forms wrong. They didn't have W8s. They filled out their forms completely wrong information-wise or messed something up as well. And so it does make sense as to why some of these players on top of that were also not paid. So when it looks, and it actually comes back to the evidence out there, I hope I convinced some of you guys until Epic Games comes forward. I still admit I could be wrong about this, but I really do personally think the Australian Open should be responsible for paying out these payments. You look at the evidence out there, the only evidence against Epic Games is the post made by Australian Open saying that Epic Games will distribute the prize pools. It says distribute, it doesn't say pay for them. Everything else wise does not really add up to me right now. So I understand the anger, but I really do think most of these players, if not all of these players, will certainly be paid. It just might take quite some time. I don't think it's Epic Games' fault, but you guys can leave your full thoughts down below. If you guys have any other evidence out there against Epic Games, feel free to share it with me. But as of right now, I am not convinced it is their responsibility, at least so far. As always, my name is Jake. I hope you guys all enjoy. Plenty of videos coming out today, so I'll be back here sometime soon. But until then, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys soon.